Welcome back, everybody, to another amazing episode of Elliot's Overtime Escape, here filmed at KDNK. Elliot, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Seth. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. Thrilled to be back here at KDNK filming episode number 12 of the podcast. Elliot, what should we do next?
Now it's time to spin the wheel.
All right, let's see what we have up first today. Looks like we are going to get the flop of the week. Elliot, who do you have down for your flop of the week this week?
Yeah, my flop of the week has to be the Carolina Panthers.
All right, tell me a little bit about it.
I just think that the Carolina Panthers lost the game and they just were my flop of the week for the past week.
Yeah, definitely a poor performance by the very Carolina Panthers. It felt like a very Panthers game. Losing to the Saints in this season at this point to Tyler Shough is definitely surprising. For my pick this week, I went with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, I just don't know what to think of the team. Last week they handily beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and then this week, they got embarrassed by, a division rival in Miami, just like an upset that nobody had, slated. So really bad loss for the Buffalo Bills, and really makes me lose a lot of faith in their team as a real contender this year. All right.
Next part of the... Now it's time to spin the wheel again.
All right. Here we go. All right. Second one of the day. It's 10-minute drill. Elliot, talk us through a little bit of the news this week.
Travis Hunter's out for season after receiving knee surgery. I wonder if the Jags knew that's why they traded for Myers.
Yeah, really interesting headline here. Last year's Heisman Trophy winner, number 2 overall draft pick, Travis Hunter, out for the season for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Really sad to see. You don't like to see that. Definitely a rookie going out with a knee surgery is always a bummer, especially, Travis Hunter with his two-sided potential being on offense and defense. It's kind of a big bummer to see him go down. I do wonder that the Jags kind of knew when they first kind of placed him in his out status. I don't think they placed him on IR yet, but I wonder if they knew at the trade deadline that he was going to be out for the season, and that's why they decided to shore up with Jakobi Meyers from the Raiders, was just that knowledge that Travis Hunter wouldn't be back.
Brian Dable fired after 2-8 start with an offensive coordinator set to be the interim head coach.
Yeah, what do you think of this one, Elliot? Do you think it was a good choice to sack him? Do you think, they should have kept him around for a little longer? What do you think?
Sometimes you get these bad starts to the season, and these seasons go bad for them, and sometimes you have to be the bad guy and let your head coach go because because the season's gone so badly for the Giants.
Yeah, I agree with this one. It hasn't been a good season, and if I remember correctly, Brian Daboll's overall record in New York has been 20-40-1, which is just not good enough for an NFL head coach. You got to think he was also leaning too much on Jackson Dart, which had potential for injury, and they just, didn't want to see that for, their rookie quarterback. Onto this interim head coach. He has decided to start Jameis Winston over Russell Wilson. What do you think about that?
I think Russell Wilson's a better quarterback than Jameis Winston because Russell Wilson's got Super Bowl caliber experience. Jameis Winston was it with lower tier teams that were bad in the season.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision to me. I can see why, especially interim head coach, you're kind of expected to make some big moves. I don't know if it was the right move yet. I would say right now, I think Jameis Winston, and granted we'll see, we have no idea what he's going to look like this season, but Russell Wilson was looking really bad up in New York, so I have some respect for the decision. And I think Jameis Winston could play better than Russell Wilson because he wasn't playing like his Super Bowl self. I mean, he threw the ball out of the back of the end zone on a 4th and goal, and that's what ultimately got him benched to Jackson Dart. I think it's an interesting decision, and it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out come Sunday.
Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow to injury reserve, has 21-day practice window open.
Yeah, Joe Burrow is back, well, or will be, within, the next month at the very least. I guess it kind of brings up two big questions, Elliot. The first, are the Bengals still in the race for a playoff spot in a weak AFC North?
I don't think so. I think the Steelers are gonna get the win or get the division title.
I agree with you, but for a different reason. I think that the Ravens are going to get it. The Ravens are only one game back from the Steelers, who they actually play this Sunday. And if they win that, they will be ahead of the Steelers. And I just think I don't have enough faith in the Bengals with the defense that they have to catch the Ravens by the end of the season. So I have the Ravens winning that division. And the second question that I think it brings up in a similar realm, it's yes, you want to make the playoffs. Yes, you want your team to be good again. You want to look good as a coach. Is this too soon to bring back Joe Burrow? Are we risking a re-injury? Are we risking having to go into surgery again just to kind of save face in a season that's already lost?
I think the season's done for the Bengals.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a questionable decision for sure to bring him back, especially this fast. I know he wants to play, but he's your star quarterback. I think at a point you have to say, hey man, we know you want to play. We're going to hold you until you're 100% healed.
And you don't want to re-injure yourself.
Exactly, and I think that's the risk they're running, and I don't think it's worth it for a team that's never going to be a Super Bowl team. They have no defense, effectively.
Aaron Rodgers says he wants to play better after Steelers stunk it up and lost to his Chargers.
Yeah, the Steelers looked really, really kind of poor in that game against the Chargers. Aaron Rodgers specifically just did not play well. We will see if they can have a big bounce back game against the Ravens this Sunday, or if that's kind of how their season's going to go, if they're going to have that classic Steelers late season fall off, and what comes with that.
There's an unicorn, Caleb Williams, after latest comeback win. He looks like a Houdini back there.
Yeah, Caleb Williams putting together a couple really good weeks in a row was really important for him, and I'm really happy for him, even as a Vikings fan. It's good to see him through so much adversity and doubt play finally at his peak after what's been really a season and a half at this point. I think we're finally seeing the USC Caleb Williams back.
Commanders defensive tackle Darren Payne suspended one game after punching Lions wide receiver in loss.
Yeah, I mean, this one's pretty simple. Can't punch people. I do always find it kind of funny when NFL players decide to punch somebody with a helmet on. doesn't seem like a really effective thing to do to me. But yeah, he's out for a game. I don't think it'll matter. The Commander season is over. And that's the end of our news for today.
Yeah, now the next spin of the wheel.
All right. What do you think we're going to get next, Elliot? Looks like it will be the mid-season review. This one is an exclusive one-time segment. We are going to quickly visit some playoff picture predictions that we're making here at the halfway point. Elliot, tell me a little bit about who you have as your predicted number 1 seed in the NFC.
I got the Philadelphia Eagles as number 1, Los Angeles Rams as the 2 seed, 3, Seattle, 4, Detroit Lions, and 5, Green Bay Packers.
Okay, I like that list. I like that list a lot. I think, in where my list differs is mostly the order of those teams. For me, I have the Seattle Seahawks, then the Detroit Lions, then the Rams, Eagles, then the Buccaneers. For the Packers, I think after losing Tucker Kraft, they just don't look like the same team anymore. They've lost 2 on the trot, 1 to Carolina and 1 to Philly. And they just didn't look good against Philadelphia, which I think is just a bad sign for them in a division that's starting to look tougher again, with the Bears playing better and the Vikings playing better sometimes. I think it's a tough road ahead for the Packers when compared to some of these other teams. Tell me a little bit about why you have the Eagles in first, Elliot.
I think the Eagles beat the Chiefs, and they're still the defending champions. And I just think that that whoever is going to be going up against them in the Super Bowl next year, if they make it or not, I just think that the Eagles are still a really good team.
Yeah, I actually agree a lot with you there. They're a really hard team to kind of gauge this year. They remind me a lot of last year's Kansas City Chiefs in the way they were just kind of like scraping these wins just barely over opponents that they should be like dominating, but they weren't losing. So you couldn't really, say this team isn't good. More just hope that they're not good. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles are still good this year, but I do have them down below a few other teams on my rankings here.
Yeah, now we're going to talk about the AFC top 5.
And this one's tough. This one's heated. Elliot, who do you have for your AFC top 5 at the moment?
Baltimore Ravens, Denver Broncos, Los Angeles Chargers, New England Patriots, and the Buffalo Bills as the last seed. Last team.
I like it. After, thinking more on it, kind of wish I could change one team on mine. Your pick of the Ravens being that high is, I like that pick. It's definitely a bit of a hot take, but I really like it. My list goes Indianapolis Colts, then the New England Patriots, then the Broncos in 3rd, the Bills, and then the Chargers in 5th. I think if I could change one thing about my list, I would bump the Los Angeles Chargers up to 4th, and I think I'd take the Buffalo Bills off of that list for the Kansas City Chiefs. I just can't have enough faith in Buffalo anymore after their last few games and how they've looked offensively.
Yeah. Do we want to spin the wheel another time?
I don't know. Maybe we should. All right. Let's see what it's going to be. All right. This will bring us into our Week 10 recap. Week 10 was a really interesting week. It felt like there was a lot of upsets throughout the league. Elliot, any games in particular stand out to you?
Ooh, that it's really tough to like make a call on. I just think the Denver Broncos upset on the being the Texan or being the Cowboy or being the Raider being the Raiders was like the thing for and also it's always hard to like pick a game, and sometimes those games are really hard to like watch, but like I think the Denver Broncos ruled the games for the past week.
Yeah, it's important to get those kind of ugly wins as a team, and the Broncos have been doing that every single week. If one side of the ball doesn't show up, the other one really does. And I do think that sort of football where you can still win those games that aren't exactly your best game are really important. So I do think that was a really notable game this week. The game that I have as maybe one of the more notable ones is the Jaguars losing to the Texans, and having probably my worst defense of the week. You're facing a backup quarterback on one of the worst offenses in the league, so giving up 30 points to them is really not a good sign. The offense also just didn't look great at points, and I think, the Jaguars have solidly slid out of most people's playoff pictures at this point, with the Chiefs and Ravens coming back strong. Another game that we've talked a little bit about that I thought was interesting was the Chargers-Steelers game. I think the Chargers have put themselves back on the map after kind of falling into the back of people's minds. To me, it looks like they're really back, and the Steelers' stock, to me, is way down. What do you think about that game?
We'll see what the Chargers going to be like at the end of the season. Like, if the Broncos beat them at the very last game of the season, I think the Chargers are going to be knocked out of the AFC West, and I think they're going to be still in the third contention spot, but I think they'll be knocked out of the season if they even make the playoffs.
Yeah, so you're saying wild card loss if the Chargers even do make the playoffs this year. All right. What should we do next, Elliot?
Now it's time to spin the wheel again.
All right. Here we go. It looks like we are probably going to get our defense of the week. Elliot, who do you have down for your defense of the week?
Yeah, I changed it from last week. I had the Broncos on my defense of the week, but now I've got the Cincinnati Bengals as my defense of the week team.
Okay, a very controversial pick. I like it. That's a really interesting pick. For me last week, I went with the Seattle Seahawks as my defense of the week. They faced a division rival, and they put up 2 defensive touchdowns, I think 3 turnovers total, a handful of sacks. I just think the Seattle defense, in Seattle in general as a team, looks way stronger than anybody expected right now. Both sides of the ball are just playing really lights out, and it doesn't look like that team really has many holes at all right now.
Yeah, spin the wheel again.
All right. Everyone at home, do a little drum roll, because this time we are going to do our upset of the week. We have another pretty quick one here. Elliot, who do you have as your upset of the week?
I got the Bengals being the Steelers was the biggest upset of the week for the in the NFL.
Okay, so you did a little bit of a throwback, I believe, to week 7. It looks like, yeah, a little throwback to week 7. I do think that was an amazing upset. Really interesting to watch for sure. For my upset this week, I have the Saints beating the Carolina Panthers. Just kind of hard to watch the Panthers be that bad after I've kind of put stock in them and said, maybe they're sneaky good, and then they lose to what I'd consider like a bottom 3 team in the league. It just looks like they don't have the consistency to really do much, down in Carolina yet.
In the wheel.
All right. Let's get in here for another wonderful spin of the wheel. And it looks like we're going to get one of our last 2 weekly awards, our Player of the Week. Elliot, who do you have down as your Player of the Week?
I got Matthew Stafford, the quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams, as my Player of the Week.
I really love that pick. I mean, he had another lights out game. He really is playing to what I'd say is an MVP caliber. And that's really cool to see for him after, everybody was doubting, like, will he be able to do it with the back injury? What's going to happen? How are things going to go for him? I think it's good to see him continue to play really, really well and put together what a lot would say is an MVP season.
Yeah. Now, spin the wheel again.
Well, quickly, before another spin, my Player of the Week this last week, it was a tough week to choose. There were some really good performances around the league. Jahmyr Gibbs had a really great game for the Lions. Like you chose, Matthew Stafford had an amazing game. Drake May continues to play lights out. But ultimately, I decided to choose a running back this week. And that running back is not Travion Henderson. It is Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts, putting up around 300 yards from scrimmage total, 2 touchdowns. He just looks unstoppable. He ran for an 82-yarder, which is the longest of his career. And that Colts offense really runs around him. To me, he was the most important player this week, because if the Colts didn't have Jonathan Taylor, I don't think, they'd be anywhere close to how they are this season. What do you think of that pick?
Yeah, I think that pick is awesome for a running back on the Colts, and like the season's always the AFC is always fluctuating on the playoff picture.
For sure, the AFC is a really, really hard one to call this year. It's been really kind of all over the place about, who has a shot, who's really in it, who's really not. And yeah, I think that, Jonathan Taylor is really one of the biggest difference makers this season. If I was on, the NFL MVP committee, I think he would be my vote right now. As of this point in the season, he's had, I think, the biggest impact on the team.
Yeah. And now we need to spin the wheel for the final award.
Right. Spinning the wheel. Let's see if we get the final award.
Are we ready? Narrow. Week 11.
Not quite this time. We have our Week 11 predictions. All right. Let's kind of start going through these games here. We had a Thursday night matchup that we both predicted. Who did you predict for the New York Jets going into Foxborough and playing the New England Patriots?
I went the New England Patriots because Liam's the biggest Patriots fan, and I just wanted to support the home team of Liam.
That's really kind. I went with them because I think they look like a much better team right now, and they showed that that is accurate. The Patriots look really, really strong. They didn't. I think like when you play interdivision, I think it's really easy to stoop to the other team's level, and I think we see that a lot. And it's not necessarily the mark of a good or bad team whether you do that or not, but it's definitely confidence inspiring to, be a division rival, even when it's the Jets, even when it's, the Raiders, the Browns, whoever it may be that's kind of a weak division team. It's always, a good sign to beat them with confidence. They went in there, got it done 27-14. There's opportunities for the Jets. They just never put it together, which is kind of what I guessed would happen. Justin Fields looks like a great running back. Unfortunately, he just hasn't been throwing the ball well. I heard that his longest passing attempt, his longest completion, might I say, was 7 yards, which just isn't long enough for an NFL quarterback in 2025.
Yeah, now next up is Miami versus Washington Commanders.
Yeah, this one's an interesting one to predict for sure. Miami's been super streaky. They've either looked really good beating, opponents like the Bills, or kind of putting a beat down on the Falcons, or they've looked pretty weak in a lot of their games. And it's really just kind of hard to say which way this one might go. Elliot, who did you pick for it?
I picked the Miami Dolphins to win the game over the Commanders because the Commanders season is probably done with.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Talk to me a bit through the reasoning. Who do you think is going to really show up for Miami to make that happen?
I think Waddle needs to put on a big show against the Commanders defense.
Yeah, Waddle's had a bit of a up and down season. I think if Miami does win, I personally think it'll be off the back of Devon Achane. He's looked really, really good rushing this year behind, honestly, one of the worst O-lines. He's really one of the bright spots for that Miami team, and I would expect if they do decide to rebuild that he would be kind of one of the key pieces that they build around. I do have the Commanders here because I felt it was close enough to where we could have a little bit of a disagreement and have, a fair shot either way. I know it's Marcus Mariota. I feel like the Dolphins tend to hand away ones they really should be winning, and that's been a big part of the problem this year, and I see it happening again. All right, and for our next matchup, we have a showdown of two teams that play up kind of north. We have the Packers going into Gillette Stadium and taking on the New York Giants. The Packers have looked really up and down, but ultimately Jackson Dart isn't playing. They're starting Jameis Winston. I think it would be a very surprising upset at the very least for the 2-8 Giants to win this one. For that reason, I went with the Green Bay Packers winning away. What do you have?
Same as you, Green Bay winning away at MetLife.
MetLife. I made a mistake. I said Gillette. Silly me. Talk me a little bit through how you see Green Bay winning this.
I think they just look like they could dominate the run game and beat the 2-8 Giants at their home field.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs has looked really, really consistent this year. Jordan Love, not so much. I think they'll be on the ground running it quite a bit. And I think that their defense will actually really be the side of the ball that prevails and allows them to beat New York pretty handily, I'd say. So we will see what happens with that game. Up next, we have a division matchup with the Houston Texans going into Tennessee and taking on the Titans. Elliot, what do you think about this matchup?
I got the Houston Texans winning away Tennessee.
Okay, road win for the Texans. I also have that. I think they'll be hot after their win over the Jaguars, going into a second divisional game in a row. I could see them, playing well again, and I think at the very least, that defense is just going to wreak havoc on the Titans. The Titans' O-line pretty much doesn't exist, and I'd say the Texans they have the best defense in the league. I'd say they also have probably a top 1 or 2 pass rush in the league. It's really tight between them and the Broncos. But I think that is just going to spell really bad news for Cam Ward and that Tennessee offense.
Yeah, now we've got Carolina going against the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, this one's a really tough one to call. Both of these teams have looked really streaky and kind of on and off. Elliot, who did you pick for this one in the big city of Atlanta?
I got the Carolina Panthers going on the road to beat Atlanta Falcons.
I think I haven't seen enough from Carolina this year to show that they're really good. I think Rico Dowdle will kind of have a day. Rico Dowdle is, I believe, like the RB3 this year, which is extra insane because he's played as a starter in about 4 less games than, most of the top rushers this year. I think I have him as a sleeper, top running back of the year if he would have started out starting for Carolina instead of, being the second string to Chuba Hubbard. And I think, his presence could cause a lot of problems for Atlanta. I don't think that'll happen. I think this is kind of a get-right game for Atlanta, show that they're still a decent team, just missing a couple pieces. I think it'll be a good game for Michael Penix. The Carolina defense has just kind of looked all right this year, and I think Michael Penix will have a good game against them. I have Atlanta winning here in a kind of ugly one. I'd say maybe 28 to 24 or something.
Now we got the Vikings the Bears are going into Minnesota to play the Vikings.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen?
I got the Minnesota Vikings because they just and JJ McCarthy came back from an injury. His injury status changed from questionable to healthy again, so I got Minnesota taking home the win.
Yeah, this one's a really tough one, especially for me as a Vikings fan. It's really hard to say, but JJ McCarthy just has not been good. He's had flashes here and there of looking okay against the Lions and against the Bears in game 1, but overall he has just really not been playing well, and it's really pretty tough to watch. I know that they beat the Bears in that thriller early in the season, but ultimately I think that was more a failure by the Bears than it was a success by the Minnesota Vikings, and I think that kind of shows. I do have, as much as it hurts me to say, I do have the Bears winning this, but I put myself in one of those kind of win-win situations where if Minnesota wins, great, that's my team, I'm glad they won. If Chicago wins, I get a prediction right, that's pretty cool too, and we'll see what happens.
I've got the LA Chargers going into Jacksonville to play the Jags. I got the Jags taking home the win because they're at home.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that pick. Outside of them being at home, what do you think is going to enable them to beat a Chargers team that I think has looked much stronger than them through the season?
Because they're coming off a loss against the Houston Texans. I think Jacksonville just needs a win to stay in the AFC playoff picture.
I actually have the LA Chargers for this, and I have it for almost the opposite reason. The Chargers just won one over, the Steelers, who a lot considered to be a pretty good team. And I think, going into Jacksonville, they know that this is a must-win if they want to stay in contention for the number 1 spot in the AFC West. Jacksonville just hasn't really looked good. They looked good at the beginning of the season, but since then they've really tapered off. They've taken some bad losses, and I think, Travis Hunter being out, that secondary being as weak as it is, I don't see them really competing with the Chargers here. I have this one like 37 Chargers, Jacksonville like 18 or something. I see this as a pretty handy win for the Chargers, keeping them in AFC West contention.
Now next up is Buffalo take on Tampa.
Who do you have for this one?
I got the Buffalo Bills because they destroyed Kansas City, and they just feel like they are still in contention for the Super Bowl, but I think Tampa Bay is probably going to be done if they lose.
Wow, you say Tampa Bay will be done if they lose. I can't see that happening in the division that they're in. I think that they win that division almost no matter what. I mean, the Panthers are, I believe, 5-5 right now. The Falcons are 3-6 or something, and we don't even need to talk about anyone else in that division. It's a weak division. I don't really foresee a way that Tampa Bay can really lose the division, so I think they'll stay in the playoffs whether they win or lose this one. And I've gone with a rather foolish pick here, especially seeing as it's in Buffalo. It may be really cold, there may be snow in that outdoor stadium, but I have the Bucks winning this one. I think, Buffalo just hasn't given me enough confidence. They've lost some games that they really shouldn't. I think both teams really need this win. I think, if you're Buffalo, you're in the know that you're a wild card team at the moment, and probably will be for the season because of how strong the Patriots look right now. So they're really going to want to come in and win this thing handily. But so will the Bucks. And for the sake of, having some difference in our picks, I have the Bucks winning this one.
Yeah, next up, it's going to be Cincinnati.
Cincinnati going into Pittsburgh and playing the Steelers, which I incorrectly said was Steelers-Ravens. I don't quite know why I thought that was the case for this weekend, but it is the Bengals going into Pittsburgh. They've beat them once. They're currently 1-0 against the Steelers. Who do you have winning this one?
I got the Bengals take home the win.
And how do you think the Bengals are going to get to the win this Sunday over the Steelers?
They just need to play the ball, have a show in Pittsburgh to send the home fans, send the Steelers fans away from the football field. Because the Bengals are they will. I think there's going to be an upset. I think the Bengals are going to beat the Steelers at home.
Yeah, I agree. I ultimately think this comes down to the play of Aaron Rodgers and that offense. They should have traded for a wide receiver at the deadline. It doesn't make sense to me that they didn't. They don't have good weapons over there in Pittsburgh. The team is so old. And it's kind of a bummer to see, but I also have the Bengals winning this one, which is really important for them if they want any chance of making the playoffs. I believe they sit at 3-5, 3-6 right now as well. They really need this one, but the Steelers also really need it. Ultimately, I think, even with how bad their defense is, I think Cincinnati can hold this one out and win against the Steelers.
Do you want to do we're on the 49ers game?
Yeah, so getting into the late slate here, we have the 49ers going down to Arizona, facing the Arizona Cardinals and Jacoby Brissett. Who did you pick for this one, Elliot?
49ers taking home the win at the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with this pick. Ultimately, I think it's really close. closer than it may appear on paper. The 49ers are just so injured. It seems like every time they win, they lose a key player to injury in that game, and every time they don't win, they don't lose a key player. It's tough to just like consistently say, like the 49ers are still going to be okay this year because they're just losing so many players constantly. But I do think that they are a better team than the Cardinals, who are down like 4 running backs. They're also incredibly injured. Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't playing this weekend. I don't see an upset happening here, even though Arizona's at home where they tend to play better. I think San Francisco, unfortunately, has this one.
And Brock Purdy's starting, so that's great.
We'll see. I think there's almost a QB1 controversy over there in, San Francisco as to who's a better quarterback for that system, because Mac Jones was actually playing incredibly good in the absence of Brock Purdy. So we'll see what happens there. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that being a quarterback controversy similar to Arizona, even though Brock Purdy just got paid a pretty check over there to play.
Now we got the Seahawks.
Yeah, we have the Seahawks going into LA and playing the Rams. I think for me this is the matchup of the week, because I think it has some of the biggest implications as to what teams are good right now, and also because I think it'll be the most entertaining game of the week. Both of these teams have really good offenses and really good defenses. I think this will be a really interesting one. Ultimately, I went with the Seahawks beating the Rams this week.
I'm agreeing with you, Seth. I got the Seahawks beating the Rams because they're such a great team.
Yeah, I think that they've looked a little more consistent than the Rams, and it's just, I don't know, this one's a really hard one to call. I think it'll just kind of depend on who wants it more on the day.
Now we've got the Broncos taking on KC at Empire Field at Mile High on Sunday afternoon. I got the Denver Broncos playing at home and beating the Kansas City Chiefs, because I think the Chiefs are going to be out of the playoffs and going to sit at home crying and waiting for the next dynasty is going to be the Broncos.
I agree with you on one thing. I think the Chiefs could miss the playoffs. However, I have them beating the Broncos here. They've looked really hot since getting Rashee Rice back and after their bye. They've just looked like a completely different team to how they looked early season. And ultimately, I think, this is Denver's game that they're finally going to take a loss, and people will start to kind of question that a little bit more. I just think the Chiefs are better right now.
I think the Chiefs are going to be sitting at home crying, but Denver's going to be the new dynasty. They're going to knock off the Chiefs and end a 10-year winless or 10-year they need to end the Chiefs, because I think the Denver Broncos are just going to be the AFC West champions for the first time in a decade.
I could see, I have the Broncos winning the AFC West for sure, but I think this one's just going to get away from them. I think this is just kind of one of those losses that they take. The offense just has not looked good enough, and I think they won't quite be able to keep up with the Chiefs. I know that the Broncos, defense is really good, but Andy Reid just kind of has a number on the Broncos, and there's just there tends to be some sort of way that the Broncos lose it to the Chiefs, unless they're playing the backups in Week 18, and I think that's what's going to happen here. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be an ugly rivalry game, but ultimately I have the Chiefs taking this one away.
You never know. Sunday afternoon is going to be a different chance for Broncos to because the Broncos fan base hates the Chiefs. They just despise them. Patrick Mahomes is going to be like sacked a lot by the Broncos defense.
We'll see. I mean, this is really good offensive line faces off against really, really good defensive front. I think the Chiefs have one of the best O-lines this year, despite having 0 good running backs. And it's just Patrick Mahomes just tends to find a different gear against the Broncos. I don't know what it is, but he always plays really lights out, especially when he's playing against Denver.
But they're going to be in Denver, which is a different than going into Arrowhead and playing the Chiefs at their home.
Yeah, I just have this one slipping away from the Broncos. I think there's 2 ways this game could go, and that's either something like a blocked field goal, a missed field goal at the end for the Broncos, or a last-second field goal for the Chiefs, a real heartbreaker, or I could see the Chiefs running away with this one and going like 40-7 or something on the Broncos in Denver.
And now we got the Ravens taking on the Browns.
Yeah, the Ravens going into Cleveland and facing the Browns. This Ravens team looks completely revitalized. They look completely new. I ultimately think they're the better team. I have them winning in Cleveland. Who do you have?
Same as you said. I got the Baltimore Ravens beating the Browns.
Okay. And that brings us on to our Sunday night game, which honestly I think could have not been a night game. I think you could have put Chiefs, Broncos, or Seahawks, Rams here, and it would have been plenty good. But our Sunday night game is the Lions going into Philadelphia and facing the Eagles, a big NFC matchup this week.
I got Detroit Lions taking home the win over Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree with you there. This one was really hard to call because Philly is one of those teams that just seems to be squeaking out those close wins this year. But Detroit isn't a team that does close, usually, and I think they're just going to kind of run away from the Eagles a little bit in this one, and I have them beating out the Eagles here.
Yeah, now the last game on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, this is a really funny Monday night game to me. The Cowboys going into Allegiant, playing the Raiders. I think this is going to be a funny game. I don't think it'll be that interesting. I think it'll be, really good for Ashton Genty. The Cowboys have had one of the worst rushing defenses. What I will say is that apparently it will be better than it was. But I don't think, it's still going to be super good. I just think that Cowboys offense is too good for the Raiders defense right now. And I have Dallas winning this one away.
Same for me.
I could see an upset happening, though. I think it's possible that, because of how bad the Cowboys defense is, the Raiders get rid of a lot of those mistakes that they tend to make that ruin their game plan, and they pull away with something. But I do think it's more likely that this goes to the Cowboys, even though I don't honestly think it's a Monday night game. And I guess the last thing to take into account is that this will be on Thursday. Normally you get 10 days of rest if you play a Thursday night game. The Raiders are coming off 11 days of rest, which is almost a full bye. And I could kind of see it going the Raiders' way. I don't know for sure, but want to put it out there in case it does happen and my predictions don't show it. For predictions last week, I went 8 correct. Elliot went 7 correct, which puts our total scores at 65 for Elliot Maxwell and 72 for me. And yeah, that'll be our week 11 predictions all done for the day.
Second to the last topic of the day.
All right, let's give that wheel a good old spin. Looks like we are going to have the our non-football segment. Walt's World is going to be our second to last for the day. Elliot, I understand you have some questions for me out of Disney. I hope they're easier than they've been in previous weeks. because I tend to go like 2 out of 10 on these when we go to 10.
They're super easy. I went and found some super easy questions.
Well, I guess we'll see by like question 3 if I'm complaining that they're not easy enough, or if, you know, our kind host here at KUNK is jumping on the mic for me, telling me how easy they are. We'll see what happens.
First question. Love is a song can be heard in what Disney movie?
Man, these should really be multiple choice. Love is a song. I honestly have no idea. I'm gonna guess it's something older. This sounds like something that would have come out a while ago. I'm gonna guess Cinderella.
No, you're it came out in the 40s.
Would that be like Snow White?
No.
Yeah, it's kind of past me then. What is the answer for this one?
The answer is Bambi
Bambi. Oh, wow, yeah.
from 1942.
Okay. Sorry to all our Disney fans out there.
The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad are inspired by which 2 works of fiction?
Maybe I just don't know Disney at all, but I feel like I've never even heard of The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Give me a brief summary about what this show or movie is about to give me a little bit of help here.
So basically, The Adventure of Ichabod and Mr. Toad was the last package film from the package film era, and they basically took the Wind in the Wills by and the other and the Washington Irving book, and just like combined the 2 books together into one package film.
Oh, okay.
So like they took 2 works of fiction and combined it into a package film to like basically make it sensible for like the audience to watch a film and not have because it was during the wartime era.
Okay, yeah, so that's real old. Yeah, I unfortunately would not have got that one. What does that bring us on to next?
Who composed the music for The Lion King?
This is one I actually should know. My mom is actually a violinist in the Colorado Springs Philharmonic, and I'm like 90% sure she's played this for one of their pop concerts. And I know there's some really famous music producers that have worked for Disney, and I just cannot get the name off the tip of my tongue here. Elliot, what is this one?
Elton John.
Okay, wouldn't have got that. I was thinking much more classical production than Elton John for some reason. Yeah, wouldn't have got that one, unfortunately, either.
So you're 0-4 probably.
Yeah, 0-3 at the moment.
0-3. Which Disney princess has a raccoon as a sidekick?
I feel like I can see the raccoon, but I can't see what setting, and I can't see what princess it's with. I'm trying to think of like movies where a raccoon would more likely be present, and that brings me to like maybe Beauty and the Beast. I'm trying to think of like things that are set in cities possibly. So Princess and the Frog also comes up, but I feel like I don't remember there being a raccoon in that movie at all.
Came out in the mid-90s.
Mid-90s, so it's a newer movie then, and it's not Pixar, it's true Disney. Ooh. Give me some sort of hint that doesn't completely give it away.
It's basically it's now the 1700, like the 1600s, or like it's basically it has Native Americans.
Oh, is that Pocahontas?
You got 1 out of 3.
We'll call that like a half point.
Half point.
I more got that off of the fact that there's Native Americans in it than that. But actually, yeah, now I do remember Pocahontas does have a raccoon sidekick. Shout out the raccoon, underrated animal.
Yeah. Next, 4th question. What number is Lightning McQueen in Cars?
Oh, Elliot. See, you gotta hit me with more Pixar questions. He's number 95. Can never forget that one. Yeah, Cars, maybe my favorite movie of all time. Iconic number, iconic character. Please give me more Pixar.
And the last question for today's episode. Where does Nemo end up when he's captured in Finding Nemo?
See, I'm telling you, Pixar's gonna really save me here, because I do also know this one. It's inside a dentist's office, in a fish tank.
Yeah, but where?
I thought that counted as where. In the fish brain, that's a location. If I'm a fish, I just know I'm in a place in a fish tank. But if I had to guess like a city, I'd have to say, can I guess California in general?
No.
Okay.
It's
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Seattle?
Sydney.
Sydney,
What?
Australia? That's insane. Wow. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I would have never guessed that though. I swear they all had very, very like American voices in that movie. But oh well. I'm gonna count that as a half point in my heart. Because if I was Nemo, I'd be like, I'm in a fish tank and they're doing dentistry in here. But those are good questions. I really enjoyed a few of those.
Yeah, now the last award for the last week award.
Yeah, it looks like our last one is going to be our Coach of the Week. Elliot, who do you have as your Coach of the Week?
I got Zach Taylor of the Cincinnati Bengals for my Coach of the Week.
Okay, I like the pick. You went very Bengals for your awards this week, I see. I went a slightly different route here. I went Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions in their win. And honestly, I think this one is the most deserving award for Coach of the Week that I've given out thus far in this season, because Dan Campbell actually took over play calling for that Detroit Lions offense, which is a huge, pretty risky move, and they put up 44 on the Washington Commanders and looked like the Lions of old again. And yeah, I think that just really merits that reward.
Yeah, now it's going to be time to sign out of Elliot's Overtime Escape. Now it's the host's time to sign it out of episode 12 of Elliot's Overtime Escape. Thank you all for watching and listening, and have a great day.
Woo!